Welcome back to Unsweetened. This is with Rich and Marty. We got Mr. Angelo back again here.
Coming back for another one.
Yep. And I think we're going to roll straight in today. And Marty, I know you've been sending out a few things here on this Brunson case to our little support group here. So why don't you give everybody the download on that?
Yeah, I did on our YouTube page. I did like about a 14-minute short on it about what was going on about it. And a couple people asked; they wanted to know what was going on. We did have a video, but the copyright's not going to let us play it over the podcast or whatever. They're going to kick it off. So it was just another. It was from about a week ago, and it was showing Mr. Brunson talking to a couple people at a convention or wherever he was at, and they were asking him questions about where everything was and where things were going. And he did mention in the video that he had signed an NDA, which again makes no sense. If they're denying your case, why is the Supreme Court asking you to sign an NDA? They would rather just tell you lost, get out, you're not, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, there's more into it about what he's proved or what he's shown to prove by the Constitution. And then the Supreme Court, the three liberal judges that denied even it being presented to the full court, then he filed a lawsuit against the three of them.
Just to rehash a little bit, give everybody a little bit what exactly.
Well, the Brunson case, the Brunson and Adams case, you can look it up. Started in Utah. It's gone all the way to the Supreme Court. It's been in the Supreme Court 3 times. They've changed the wording. They've done this and that. Basically, it lists all 388 people that were there on the day, January 6th, and accepted the electoral votes in the House for Joe Biden.
Okay.
10 states said that they had problems or stuff that was going on with their electoral votes, that they weren't sure, that there was problems at home with voting systems and stuff. They wanted to make sure everything was done. They wanted a pause. By the Constitution, Mike Pence should have gone in front of them and sent everybody home for 10 days for them to figure out what was going on, then come back and redo the electoral votes. That's by the Constitution. Okay. The Democrats, when the Republicans brought that up, they held a vote, and the vote was denied for any more examination, and they were to present their electoral votes.
Okay.
So what he's saying is they broke the Constitution of the United States by putting Biden in power, and all 388 people that were there, and it lists every one of them. All of them, it basically says, have committed treason against the United States and should be held responsible and liable for that.
And this is in the lawsuit.
That's what the lawsuit is all about.
Okay.
And the whole first 10 pages is just stuff from the Constitution showing exactly what was supposed to happen by the Constitution on that day on January 6th. And none of it happened. Mike Pence and all of them subverted the Constitution and installed Joe Biden. That's basically what his lawsuit said.
When did they come down with their decision?
So, again, that goes into the law, the timing, because it went to the Supreme Court, and we showed all that in the short, how many times it was there when it went through all the court systems. It was kicked back the first time because of wording, constitutional wording. The Supreme Court asked to have the wording changed. Technicalities. Then it went back again, and then that's when it was rehearing denied. Rehearing, both of them say rehearing denied, and they were 6 months apart. That means it was given to 3 or 4 judges. They preview it, and then they say, no, we're not accepting this, or yes, we're accepting this to the full court. And the problem with that is they gave it to 3 of the liberals and 1 conservative judge, and both votes were 1-3 to accept, and 3-1 to kick it out. And he's saying that the Supreme Court, his new lawsuit is against those 3, saying they read this. They understand the people broke the Constitution, and that the Supreme Court's turning a blind eye to it because they're supposed to uphold the Constitution no matter what happens. And he shows in this thing where they did not send them home for the 10 days that they broke the Constitution.
So is it sitting before the Supreme Court now?
So now in the last stage, it was denied, and then he went over with this lawsuit against the 3 of them. But during that time, 3 days after when all this, the denial and then his new law, that's when all of a sudden, you can go to his TikTok, his Twitter and everything the last 3 years, and there's a TikTok on there a tweet or something on there once a day or once a week about the lawsuit. And then it was denied 2 days later, he filed the new lawsuit against the 3 liberal judges. 3 days later, he was forced to sign an NDA. He's not posted on Twitter. He's not been on Facebook. He's not on TikTok. He hasn't made a TikTok ever since that happened 16 months ago. He's not on any platform. If yours was being denied and shut down, why wouldn't he be coming out and saying why they shut him down and why?
So he's been completely silent.
He's basically been completely
Okay.
silent.
Okay.
And now all of a sudden he's come out with a couple of interviews where he said,
As I say, is
He
that
keeps-
video we were looking at the other day? Is that
yeah, that's from about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it's so funny when people ask him, is the court hearing, is it have they just not told us? And he smiles every time and just kind of looks away and says, no, it's been denied. You can just tell there's more to what's going on in the
Right.
situation that's going on in the situation. Now, the Supreme Court, let's say they did say, yeah, this was. Well, who do they go to? Where do you go? I mean, my only thing is you go to the military. I mean, that's the only place you could go, couldn't? I mean, I don't know where else you would go. Everything else is
for
part
what?
of it.
I mean, for
Well, let's say
for-
they said yes, these people did. Well, who do you go to get to enforce that?
And then if I'm
well, you
correct, you're under military law.
Would, yeah. I was at that point. Yeah.
Which the conspiracy theorists already say that, because if you go back to Joe Biden's inauguration, it wasn't an inauguration. You go back and watch how many gun salute it was and all that kind of stuff, and the military turning their backs on. There's pictures of them driving down the road and all the military standing there with their backs to them. I can show you pictures from that. That's what makes most people, if you watched the inauguration on January 20th, when Trump left the White House, he didn't go meet Biden, just like they all do. They always go meet and they hand off the briefcase. And he went to a military base in Virginia and it was live on TV and handed the briefcase to 4 or 5-star generals.
Okay. So I'm gonna bring up something that may be controversial, but
That's what we're all about here, isn't it?
Just out
You're
of
the right
fairness.
table.
You're at the right table.
So I've been hearing the same thing since the Bush Gore, election, which some people said that was a coup.
Oh, it was.
So okay, so how does all of this fit? Because in my 30 years of research, the people that have been legitimate, for lack of a better term, labeled conspiracy theorists, those that were really legitimate and had the respect, they always called out both sides. It was never
I
it
think
was
you
never
should.
liberal and never conservative. One is better than the other. They're both dirty.
They're both there.
Yeah.
So
I heard at the beginning of this, they thought 65% of the people in Congress were bad. And it turned out to be about 92 or 93%.
okay.
That was what they were expecting. You're going into a battle briefing and you're expecting, 65% of the combatants to turn and fight. And when 90% turn and fight, or 92%, I think that's just what I've heard, from other people that made that military, have said that. We thought it was this many people, and there was way more rhinos than we thought there were.
So technically, if they're correct, how long and when did we actually come under military law?
I think on January 20th, when Trump left, when he went with the briefcase, the nuclear briefcase, and they had it on CNN, they had it on ABC. They were all talking, why is Trump going to this military base and blah, 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 blah. And it was a military procedure of handing over to military. I think they handed over. It goes back to what we talked about before.
And you're saying that's not normally done. He wouldn't hand that football over to.
No, it would have been handed over to, like Obama handed it over to Trump, and Trump, they all the way down the line. They've always been like a sort of kind of a ceremony thing in the East Garden or whatever it is. And
So when you refer to military rule, you're saying that basically they're running things in the background, or
no, I kind of think.
or you
Remember,
think-
that's what we were talking about before. You remember on the first episode, not the first one or whatever, when we were talking about somebody, we said something. Well, who would? Again, it goes back to the military, kind of like with the Supreme Court. Who do you go to in that time of peril and say, okay, you just can't go to law enforcement because you don't know who law enforcement's working for.
So I'm smiling because we're talking about mainstream stuff, but there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes.
A lot.
That is actually mainstream, but the mainstream public are not hearing it from
The mainstream media.
news, right?
The media is not telling them.
So there has been this
And that is their first response, though, when you're talking to them. I've never seen that on TV.
Right.
And I said, does that make it false? I
Right.
mean,
So
Well,
there
you're
is
not gonna-
supposedly a very real physical civil war going on in underground bases, you name it, literally across the world, where they're cleaning house, the white hats. So this actually ties into that.
the whole, when you sit back and
Heard
look,
the white hat term.
and the puzzle pieces, once a couple puzzle pieces start clicking, it's like him when we talk about stuff, and then he goes, "Oh, okay, all right, now that I'm like, see, another puzzle.
Right.
You've mentally brought in that other puzzle piece, and it clicks, and it kind of makes the other 4 puzzle pieces around it that I've been telling you about.
And that's
make
what
more
I was
sense."
saying the first time, because in all my years of research, like I may have picked up something, back in 95, and now that piece is fitting in now in 2024.
I've spiritually, and that's where I go into the spiritual part. A lot of these people that, once you start understanding a little bit more about what's going on, it becomes more of a spiritual journey. You're not really worried about where we're headed. You're worried about learning the wisdom that you were supposed to be taught while you're on this journey.
Right.
You kind of start sitting back a little bit more, and you kind of start watching and seeing things.
Yeah.
And when all it takes is a couple of people to fill in a couple of those pieces of the puzzle, and then again you start snapping things together. But I look back, and I was a horrible student. I mean, I was.
But you got to be careful too, because there's a lot. I mean, you got to be careful about connecting pieces, man. 'Cause sometimes
you only connect the pieces when you get that piece of puzzle piece of
Well, I understand that.
that.
I've seen people try to connect one piece over here to something way over here.
And for all purposes, we're not connecting any dots here. I'm not, for
What
all
I'm
of
saying,
you
though-
people out there that think we're just sitting here telling you, this is crazy stuff or whatever. We're not telling you anything. What we're saying is do some research.
I'm the antagonist.
Exactly.
Do some research.
Exactly.
Yep.
Do
Go
it.
look
Do
into
it
some
yourself.
stuff. Yeah.
Right. Don't just listen to.
Okay, you
the
explained it well.
Well,
most trusted talking head. Right.
We've talked about this before, and I've told you this journey has become lonely at times, and that's only because it's a spiritual journey.
Right.
Other people can't do it with you.
Right.
Some of this you have to do by yourself. Some of it, it's soul searching. It's doing a lot of different things. But again, like school, I was not a good student. I hated school. I didn't want to be in school. And then you start looking now, he's getting rid of the Department of Education. When you start looking into the Department of Education and who writes all the books for the Department of Education and who publishes the books it's all the same people that are at Diddy and Epstein Island. It's the same people. School doesn't teach you anything. School teaches you one thing. And think about this. It only teaches you one thing. It teaches you to repeat until you memorize it. It doesn't teach you to look into anything. They tell you what to look into.
Right.
It depends. I mean, it depends on the teachers too. I had some college teachers that were very adamant about doing your own research.
That
on
was
things.
40 years ago.
All right, so it's a little while ago, but
okay. So have you?
I mean, but I get you. I get your gist of your.
And we're
point.
not saying that it doesn't mean, and I understand what he's saying. There's always going to be those outliers or those teachers that you considered special, right?
Oh,
I know
yeah.
from my high school class,
I remember.
we've had like these kind of tributes to those special teachers that everyone thought was special, right?
Yeah.
They stand out, and they're
Outstanding Teacher of the Year.
right.
Because they weren't following the system. They were doing their own thing and making the learning fun.
And it made a difference to those students. Now, in saying that, I don't know if are you guys familiar with Bill Cooper or William Cooper? Wrote Behold a Pale Horse.
Yes.
He talks about that in his book, right? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's under the chapter of Quiet Weapons for Quiet Wars, and the educational system, and just how things are done. We've deliberately been dummied down and it's gotten worse and worse each decade. So now you see what we have.
What,
Oh, yeah.
what was
I hear it
the
from my
what was the
brother.
movie clip I
That's
showed you that one time where it's Bill Golden or whatever, and they're asking, the kids are asking him, it's a movie, and they're asking him, is America the greatest country in the world? And he finally says, no, it's not.
Oh, the guy from
we're,
the newsroom.
We're 27th in learning.
Right.
We're 39th in this.
Yeah,
we're
he's
first
just
in
messed
murders.
us
You know,
up.
blah blah.
Right.
But we're
They
not
got
the
a lot of
greatest.
play.
Yeah,
They got a lot of
we're
play.
not the greatest country in the world. Well, we have freedom.
We were.
There's 180 other sovereign countries out there that have freedom. Canada has freedom. England has freedom. Sweden has freedom. Spain has. I mean, you can't say we're the greatest country in the world. Were we at one point in time? I think so. During the industrial boom, I think we were.
Yeah. And how do you gauge what makes you the greatest country in
Yeah.
the world, right? How do you gauge that? Now, anyway, before it was more about military might.
Power.
It's about power.
Yeah, is power. Always.
Well, I think that's where we're headed. I think that's the whole point of this. I think at the end of this, it's all about humanitarian stuff.
I think a true power country would be one that's not only advanced in their technologies and things, but is also willing to help other countries.
Yeah.
They're willing to give out amongst themselves. Okay.
So then, how does
that
that
would
fit
make you-
into the populace thinking now? Those that support Trump because he wants to be more of an isolationist.
Yeah.
So
What do you mean by isolation?
I mean,
in the sense that he wants to pull back from any type of engagement and
The Accords and all that.
yeah, just
well, it depends on the market. I mean, some of it. I mean, for instance,
Or are you talking about the tariffs?
Yeah, I was listening to him talk this afternoon. Matter of fact, he was on Tucker Carlson today, and he was explaining. One thing he was explaining was the fact that it's about oil and gas, and he was telling Tucker, he's like, we're going to do the oil and gas. We're going to let China do the electric cars and the chips and things like that, and we're gonna have good trade. And so that's kind of my take from it was, we're gonna take the resources that we have plenty of, and use that to our advantage, and then we'll outsource the other part.
But here's the thing. He knows, as an example, back when his first time around, he kept promising those in the coal production areas that they were going to get their jobs back. And 60 Minutes had a episode when they were talking to the head of the coal industry. And he said, we're not going back. It's about
I saw that.
It's about
I saw
green
it.
technologies.
Somebody
Even
said
they're
something
using
on that.
green technology. So he's trying to get all these people to believe that they're getting their jobs back. And just you saying that now, fossil fuel, yes, we have to use that for now. It's in everything that we use, basically,
Yeah.
right? That's how I got to Texas. My dad was in oil and gas. He was an engineer. But they know behind the scenes, just like we were talking about Elon Musk earlier, is that we're headed to advanced technologies, 0-point gravity type of energy systems. When I got in trouble, or I shouldn't say got in trouble, but when the FBI was looking into me back in the day, what was I looking at? I was looking at propulsion systems, advanced propulsion systems. So, yes, we need oil and gas right now.
Yeah, if they find you looking at something curious, man, they're gonna come check on you.
Yeah, I heard an interview. This gentleman, very popular on the fringes. He's been on Gaia a lot, platforms like that, and very well known. And he said, "Look, I can talk about," and he was involved in these programs. He said, "I can talk about aliens all day long, but when I start talking about big pharma and oil and gas, they will kill me." Okay, so
So be careful.
If people think that's crazy, it's a conspiracy theorist. It was like in 1986. It was the year I graduated high school. Right after I graduated high school, that's when the guy in California showed that the car would run on water.
right.
And like 2 weeks later, they said he died, committed suicide, and jumped out a window. I was like, the guy just invented the thing that's going to stop gasoline production, and all. And,
See, I think
and
everything-
he committed
I
suicide.
worked for Mercedes. I was in a special program for them, and it was back in early 2000s. And we talked about that when I was in training there. That they have engines that will run on water. They buy these things and they shelve them. These corporations, they don't want that out. So
No, they read
Not
about
yet.
they read
Not
about
yet.
the patent.
But there's things that are coming soon.
Well, remember when we were talking about where you said you hadn't heard of Nazar Jazar, and I showed you the last line in that. The
Right.
last line in that was a release of all technology that had been suppressed by the government for the last 200 years.
Yes.
That's what the line says. That is part of the whole financial thing, the whole disclosure,
Yes.
the whole everything.
Yes.
That's
And so
that's where we're
Well,
going.
and you got to understand how come. I've listening to you the last however long I've known you, 2 years.
Do I give you a headache still?
So no, occasionally, but no. I mean, the one thing I've learned over time is a lot of this is very very convoluted. There's a lot to it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a layman trying to figure this out and you're listening to people on the internet and YouTube and you're trying to piece all this together, it's not very easy.
It's
So
not.
I understand why some people have going, oh, what? No way. And it's
Yeah,
because they don't know how to piece all the pieces together. It is a lot of information.
I have literally spent thousands of hours researching these different things, and then people will ask you, they want you to tell them kind of in a nutshell what's going on.
It's
But
hard.
It's
You
not
can't.
possible.
You can't. Yeah.
It's not possible. And even the government. We touched on this before. They actually have names for people like us. If you're putting together the pieces of the puzzle, they worry about you figuring out the truth.
Yeah.
They have a name. It's called your accumulator, right? Because you can
Right.
accumulate enough knowledge
Yeah.
to put together the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I posted on my Facebook page about 4 years ago when I started posting all my conspiracy theory stuff. I posted on there. I'm in
God, I hate that term.
perfect health, and I am not suicidal. That's what I just in
Right.
case anything.
I think
happens.
outside the box.
Yeah, that's what they should be calling people. Is just really, if you just start looking into stuff. The first, people go, well, I can't find anything on it. Well, that's your first clue. If you can't find anything on it, that makes me even more suspicious about
Exactly.
what's going on.
Exactly.
And then if you're only you have to read both sides.
Yeah.
If you don't read both sides, or you don't investigate and absorb something from both sides, because none of it is going to be all the way down this side or all the way down that side. It's going to be a merger of particles from both sides at the end of this.
So
it's just putting the particles or the puzzle pieces together.
exactly. You just touched on something I tell people all the time, like especially people that want to poo-poo what I may tell them that it doesn't fit their worldview. I'm like, I've done my due diligence. I've done it on both sides. Have you done yours? Right? Any good attorney, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to know both sides of the case. Otherwise, he can't fight that in court, right?
can't
He's not
argue.
prepared. So at least don't just listen to what fits your worldview and what you like. Find out what the other guy is listening or is hearing.
I understand. I completely agree with what you're saying. Completely 100%. The problem is a lot of these right now, to understand some of the stuff, you have to basically forget what you've been taught your entire life, or what they've been drilling into your head your entire life. You've got to be able to let go of it and say,
Well, that's part
they
of being
maybe they fooled me. Maybe they fooled me. But
being-
a lot of people's ego is way too strong that they're never going to
And you're exactly right.
be able to say, I got fooled. They'll just
Right.
stick with the I'm fooled till the end and say, I know I'm right until the end.
That's
That's
there's a name
the
for that
spiritual
I'm trying to
problem.
think of it.
That's the spiritual part of this, is being able to let go of all your emotions, your ego.
Cognitive dissonance. And so what I said it because of exactly what you're saying, because there's people I've talked to, as an example, the religion I came out of, right? I was wholeheartedly immersed in that for the majority of my life. But then when I actually started doing deeper research on these other things to prove what I believed was accurate. Mm-hmm. But the deeper I dug, the more that I saw, the more I saw, no, this isn't actually what the truth is, right? And so, that's why I've asked people, okay, you're on that side, you stay firmly committed to that side, but have you reached out to look at anything else? And if somebody's telling you, oh, if you look at something else, it's going to shake your foundation. Well, you didn't have a good foundation to begin with, and you didn't have what you consider the truth to begin with.
Most people, if they really sat down and just thought about it and looked at what's going on around them, most of the time it's the teachers, the media, the news, the police, that it's all the same stuff. You're being taught the same thing. You're being told the same thing.
I think more people are opening up to that, though.
More people.
That's why they call it the Great Awakening.
That's why it's called the
You
Great
see a lot
Awakening.
different. People are getting their information from a lot different sources rather than.
He hit the key on the
5 o'clock,
head.
6 o'clock
Most
news.
people don't understand. This is one of the Great Awakenings. It's part of. See,
Stuff
now
to
we're gonna get
cover
into controversial stuff here. We're gonna start. I don't want to get you all mad.
And I wanted to touch on when you said spiritual, because a lot of times this is the way I was when I first started my journey. When I left my religion of my childhood and everything, I didn't want to hear anything about God, spirituality, nothing, because I felt like it was all part of religion. Right? And then my journey kept taking me back to spiritual. And even the things that I was learning that are, really hard to believe, whether it was military, talking about a government, it's still connected to spiritual stuff. And so I had to distinguish spirituality from religion. Right.
Big difference. I've told.
Yeah, religion is just a classification of different.
Everybody's on their own spiritual path. I mean, I've told him this many times. I said, "You're a little bit farther behind me. That's what we're here for. We're here to help the people behind us fill in some of the information there. You're here to teach me other things on my spiritual journey. Everybody's at a different path, all going to the same point in the circle, but everybody's. You might be a mile away. This person might be a ninth of a mile away. This person might be a quarter of a mile away. Everybody's on their own path at their own time.
That's your journey.
It's your own journey. That's the spirituality of that. That's where I come from. That's where we've talked about before and some of the other things. If you want to get into it, I really believe we've been here before. I believe we come back to learn more lessons. I think this is a big point of our spiritual journey, is learning emotions and how to control them.
We are actually unique. If you want to touch on other beings, we're always considered unique because of our emotional makeup.
Now we're gonna get to the Palladians and the Anunnaki and the stuff Ryan wanted to talk about and that's just another wing. But you need to explain to them exactly what we're discussing here, so some people understand. I mean, just give them a roundabout idea. And again, we're not telling you this is the truth. We're giving opinions. We're giving facts. We're giving stuff you can go look and see, read about, do what you want. Don't take our word. Don't take anybody else's word. That's the best thing I could tell anybody. Don't take anybody's word. Somebody asked me, said, do you not trust anybody? I said, not really. Even if one of my friends saw something that I don't know about, let's say you
appreciate it.
You call me on the phone and we start talking. You start talking about something. Oh, we need to talk about this, and you start going on, and I'm sitting there listening to you and going, okay, yeah, I don't know, and I'm thinking, I haven't read anything about this. I'm not real sure, but all right, he's on the first thing I'm going to do is, and when you say, yeah, do you agree? I'm going to go, yeah, I agree. Well, let me look into this first. And I'm going to hang up, and then I'm going to go start doing some research and try to find out, okay, what's going on here? What's he talking about? I need to understand.
That's the point, though. That's the point that needs to be sparked. It should spark you to go do your own research and dig into it, right?
That's why we talk to you.
The point.
Yeah, that's why we talk to you, man.
and again,
I don't know. I don't know anything about.
Everybody's brought into. Everybody's brought into
our. About.
Everybody's brought into your life for a reason.
Yes.
Some people
fully
that
agree with that.
Come into your life and they maybe you're in your life for 6 months. That was an NPC. That was a non-player character that somebody came into your life that was what you were going to learn from them or what you were going to be able to teach them wasn't going to work, so you moved on to somebody else. And you might have friends that for 4 or 5 years, really good friends, and you're with them all the time. You learn from them what you can, and then the relationship kind of go, oh, we don't see each other very much, and he's got other, and then, but there's other people that you're drawn to that you're always with, or you always know you can call that person. That person's always there. There's more to that than just us being here. That's family. It's spiritual family that you've been here before, and you're always searching for your spiritual family. It's not blood.
Right.
You could have been a female the last time you were here. I could have been a black man last time. I could have been a Chinese lady. But you're always looking
Right.
for your soul. You're always looking for your family.
You guys
Soul
could have
family.
been husband and wife
Could
in
have
a
been
past
husband
life.
and wife.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so.
And
Could've been.
I was the brother-in-law or something.
There
It's
you
like
go.
supposedly the people that are in your life now have been
Probably
in
crossed
your life
paths at some
through
point.
past life.
Well, it's the people that
Wow.
come into your life that don't go out of your life. They're always there for some reason. They, you don't even, you can pick up the phone. You haven't talked to them in 6 months, but you can pick up the phone, and as soon as you start talking, it's like you ain't missed a day.
Right.
Those
Right.
are the people.
your soul group.
Your soul group,
Yeah.
the spiritual group, whatever, however you want your family. Well, I call it family. When we're talking, we always
Yeah.
talk about family because that's the whole spiritual
family's
basis
not
for
always
me.
blood.
Is that spiritual family, and then that goes back to what you were talking about with the Anunnaki and some of that, where people were saying that that's the different blood types. You're always searching for your family. And
That's
you
correct.
Could be in that blood type.
That's correct. And I can't remember if we touched on it before, but that's something I've learned even from secret society knowledge is that it's never been about this. We've made it about this. And
Or the media, and then make it about we.
well, even
we
before
don't.
that, but
We
even
don't.
before that, it's, let's say in more modern epics, it's been about that, but that's misguided because to them, those that know, it's always been about bloodlines, right? So,
And when you find out most of the bloodlines are that shade of color and not this shade of color, then it's going to really freak you out. Because if you go back and look at a lot of the bloodlines, they'll tell you exactly where, the Cubans, the Jamaicans, the Brazilians.
I don't believe in race to begin with. So.
well, I have to because it affects me on a daily basis.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, in all actuality, I believe.
No, I know. I
believe-
get what you're saying. I get what you're
I believe
saying.
because of where we went and stuff like that, I think the skin naturally changed over time because if you noticed, most of from my knowledge, the white race had come from the north, from England and the colder areas, and migrated down over just time.
Would you believe that those bloodlines came from each of the individual princes that came here, that settled here?
Okay.
So they each basically had their own genetic experiments.
You remember when Ancient Apocalypse, when the guy comes
each
out of the
race is
water?
as a separate bloodline.
So if we back up a little bit, and if you know anything,
Wait, first explain that. You got to explain that so everybody at home, because they have no idea what we're talking about right now. So you got to at least give them some background on the Anunnaki or the actual basis of the story.
So basically, the Anunnaki are spoken about in the mankind's earliest and oldest known writings from the Sumerian Empire. So they talk about the Anunnaki, which in loose translation means those who from the heavens came, or even more accurately, those who from space came. Okay, and so the Anunnaki came here in search of gold to repair their planet, which they damaged through warfare on their own planet, nuclear warfare, to be exact.
The Autobots and the Decepticons.
So they were looking for gold, and scientists, you can look this up too, scientists more recently are finding out that the atmosphere can be repaired with gold dust, right? I haven't delved into that very deeply, but I did come across some things that talk to that.
I've heard about it.
Okay.
I've heard
So
that
they were
theory.
in search of gold. They came here to this planet, and that's what they were in search of. And once they discovered it, which actually goes into our history with gold, man's history with gold, why it's been such a critical part. Civilizations have fought and died for that wealth. Look at the Spanish conquistadors that came here, and it was such an important thing.
The Aztecs.
They had it. Why did they have it? Because it's been important to them, because that's what was passed down through all these lineages from the Anunnaki. Okay, every civilization had that, and it was very important because that's what they were doing. They were mining for gold here, and supposedly, without going too deep down the hole, they had another group of beings that were much bigger, that they call the Igigi, I believe it was. They were using them, and they rebelled. So then that's when they genetically manipulated us as Homo sapiens. And those that were sent here, the two brothers that were sent here, were princes by Anu. He was the king of the Anunnaki. Anu sent his two sons. One was named Enki or Ea, and the other was named Enlil. And believe it or not, I'm going to step on some toes here, but believe it or not, the story in the Bible of, God and Satan really originates from that strife these two brothers had.
Correct.
So that's kind of giving you a high view of where that all originated.
And what's really cool, if you don't believe the gold story, because people go, gold, why would they come? Where that would have to be huge. I would say, just look at a silver or gold strip mine where they've stripped down, where they've gone in and dug it up, and then take real good view. Just sit back, relax, have a beer, and look at the Grand Canyon, and then you go, okay, that wasn't 300 million years worth of water erosion. Mm-hmm. That was a giant strip mine.
And that's starting to come out now.
That was a giant, and that's why they won't let you. You can't go into the Grand Canyon and excavate and walk around. You can only go where they let you go. It's because they don't want you to know.
Places,
they don't want
military.
You to know. Yeah, they don't want you to know what actually that was. What the Grand Canyon what they're saying is the Grand Canyon with basically a giant gold strip mine. There was giant, huge machines that were basically dredging that all up, like the ones in Alaska, just 10 times bigger that the Anunnaki and the bigger race had before us. And big machines and tools.
So I have a question for you. Where would you find the papers and things like that, information for some of this stuff? If somebody wanted to go
You have to go to do a lot of ancient reading.
You have to do a lot of reading. You can read their the Sumerian writings, and as an example, it's called the Epic of Gilgamesh. Okay. There's a lot of information in there. Now, recently, there has been so-called scrolls that were released that were written directly by the Anunnaki, that were held in secret by a very wealthy family, and they've just now released them. And their reasoning was they did not want to interfere with mainstream religion and all of that. They didn't want to upset that.
Because it turns mainstream religion on its head. Basically.
It does, and so that has been a huge.
And this part
that's what makes that right there is kind of what makes it so hard for people to believe in it. The fact that it's not something that's accessible knowledge wise.
It's been released publicly.
You have to really know somebody in order to.
I found it on my own. I found it because,
and that's been released publicly, like he said. You can actually go find the documents and.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
So, but the average person is not looking those directions.
Okay.
And I have a really close friend, been friends for a long time, and he said, "Yeah, but you're finding stuff that fits your belief system."
Everybody does that, though.
But okay, this is stuff that.
But it doesn't mean that what you're saying isn't true. It just means I'm just saying that it's.
Well,
everybody does.
Let's go back to something everybody does believe in, right? For the most part, is the Dead Sea Scrolls, right?
Yeah.
So the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nicene Council, Emperor Constantine,
the people that decided what books went in the Bible and what didn't.
Right. They decided what was going to be in there. But do you think the people that risked their lives, was it the Essenes, or they were Jews that felt they wanted to protect these scrolls with their lives. Mm-hmm. So if these other scrolls that they didn't deem worthy to be with the biblical, the canonical books of the Bible,
yeah. Oh, okay. No.
Why would these people risk their lives to save those if they were just fiction with these other important scriptures? Right, and that's what my question is. The people that they say, "Oh, that's not canonical or whatever," and it's like, but they were just as important to these people at the time, right? They hid them.
Both you're talking about the scrolls you're talking about, and
the biblical books that were found in these scrolls, and then other books they consider like the.
I have it in
the Book of Enoch, or
okay, what you explained. Okay.
Yeah.
It's 88 books. There's another 88 books that I have in the other room. It's Samuel 1 and 2. It's Enoch 1, 2, and 3. There's the Book of the Giants. There's a bunch of different books in there.
And they actually
didn't want in there.
When you look into them, they actually
refer to the Bible, and there's
And they make it a little
references
more
in the
clear,
Bible. Yeah,
right?
and
It's
there's
like-
references in the Bible that actually reference Enoch, the Book of Enoch, and a couple of the books that are not in it. When you start reading the Book of Enoch, it refers back to Joseph, and it refers back to Mark, to Luke, and a couple of different sections where it fills in parts of the story that
Right.
weren't
Yeah,
that
yeah.
weren't or that they didn't want to accept and let in.
And
And
if
I don't know whether those are part of it or not. It very well could be. The only.
well, they were found together.
So the only thing, yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's why I say it's very.
But you have no confidence, belief that with the books that they gave you and told you were Bible books could have been something that they wrote and made a cartoon out of 50 years ago. Before you were born. You've been told that all your life.
Well, I mean, it's also been recorded throughout history. Sumerians. I mean,
Well, let me
throughout
say this
history.
then.
I mean,
With-
we're finding things, artifacts, the Ark, things like that. That are in the Bible.
We're not saying the Bible's
So
not true.
You're finding things in there, so
We're not saying the Bible's not
Some
true.
of those things parallel.
We're not saying the
let me
Bible's
touch-
not true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me
no, I
touch on
get
that.
it.
So the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is, again, these are some of the oldest known writings.
Mm-hmm.
They precede the Bible by thousands of years, and yet they have the same description of a flood and other things
Yeah.
that the Bible took from them. If this came first thousands of years earlier, then do you take what came after as more legitimate, or what came first? Right? That's a question.
I don't know. It depends, I guess, what are you referring to?
The Book of Gilgamesh and all that stuff was it was
Yeah.
written 500, 800 years before any of the books of the Bible.
And
were written.
what is it?
Basically
It
about
tells
everything
story
about
of-
the Bible.
It tells the story of a man that was saved by
Okay.
by getting early information to help save his family, so on.
Okay.
It's a little bit different, but
Okay.
every civilization that had no contact before has this story, right?
Sure.
But then you've got the Epic of Gilgamesh that came way before the Bible, and you have to say, well, the Bible information came from the Epic of Gilgamesh, right?
Okay.
So if it came first, it's known, it's an established fact, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That came
They've
first.
used the story more times in the Bible than you will understand, because he's trying to save his family and gets early knowledge. Okay, I can name you 4 other giant major books or stories in the Bible. The same thing. Noah was asked to save his family and was given early information. The flood was coming to start building the ship.
Well, he was given directions.
That's what
In the Epic of Gilgamesh,
Moses was
there's no
too.
doubt it's talking about
So
who was later known as Moses in the Bible. And I forget, again, I have to, he's called something else in the
Yeah.
Epic of Gilgamesh, but there's no doubt they're talking about the same individual.
okay.
And then you
okay,
read the book
okay.
of Enoch. The book of Enoch. Enoch is Noah's great grandfather.
Okay. Yeah.
So that book was written way before. I mean, that information was collected way before Noah and was even born. So that's what he's saying. Some of these stories go
Yeah.
farther back than the Bible, that predate
Yeah.
the Bible. That it seems like the Bible just took parts of the story that they wanted from other
Correct.
stories and made their own story to make it a certain narrative or a certain way
To fit a certain narrative.
to fit a certain narrative.
And so,
Well, I mean, wasn't a lot of it written by first-hand accounts from people?
There's
I mean,
there's nothing in the
Matthew,
Bible
Mark,
that
Luke,
was
John.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not written by Matthew,
were-
Mark, Luke,
huh?
and John.
yeah. I'm
No,
not
but they
gonna-
were written. They were written by people. They
It
were
was
actually
it
written
was
by-
hundreds of years actually
So-
after the events.
300 to
So-
1100 years after the
the
death
events.
of Christ. That's when those books were written. 300 to 1100 years after the death of
Okay.
Christ. The Book of Gilgamesh, Book of Enoch, and all that stuff was 500 years before that was written.
Okay. So,
At the
so how
very
did
least.
John
At
the
the very least.
how,
At the
how did
very
John the
least.
Baptist write Revelations?
John
Because
the
he,
Baptist.
he
Yeah,
wrote
that's
it
a
in
different.
dream.
That's
That's a,
yeah.
that was
He wrote it
that
in
was
a- he wrote it in a
dictated.
dream,
Supposedly that was
and he-
dictated.
And he wrote down what God told him in a dream. That's
So-
supposedly. So that
so-
was during the time. So that how does the last book written during the time and the rest of it's not?
No,
Years
there's
later?
no book. There's no book in there. Even Revelations
was
was
written
not.
by-
It was a
was it-
letter that it was a
It's written by John the Baptist.
after a dream
He
that
had,
somebody
so it was
else
written during that time
translated and rewrote 500 years later.
No, this was supposedly actually.
Go look at the date of
Okay.
Revelations and when it was
No.
written.
Let me correct you now. A lot of people make this mistake.
Okay, that's true.
John the Baptist was not the one that wrote.
No, I'm
Revelations.
sorry.
It was
was
Paul.
Yeah,
Right.
It was Paul.
No, was it Paul?
It was
It
Paul.
was
It was
the
John.
Apostle Paul.
Oh, was it?
I'm sorry.
I thought it was John.
The Gospel of John was written by John the Apostle, who was
John
different.
the Apostle.
John
I'm
the
sorry.
Apostle.
Yes. Okay. But he did. Was it Paul that wrote the Revelations?
No.
No,
Or was it
Paul
John?
didn't write
Paul
Revelation.
wrote the
John the
letters
Apostle.
to.
He wrote the letters to the Christian
Yeah,
congregation,
Corinthians.
Corinthians
Okay.
as well as others. So
All right. So.
It's
No,
just,
but that's.
and we're not
but a
arguing
lot
with
of
you.
that
We're
stuff
not
falls
saying
in-
the Bible's not right. We're not saying the Bible's
think there's a
incorrect.
lot
We're
of
not
things-
saying anything like that. What
I
I
get it.
translate the Bible, my personal translation of the Bible is this stuff happened back then that Jesus learned spiritually to be able to do things and taught, or God taught him how to do certain things. That was the healing of people and certain things that he could do.
and we're not even getting into Christ complex,
Yeah, we're not even
or
getting-
that there could have been an amalgamation
Well, hang on a
of
second.
individuals.
So that he could do this with the power of the human body, which we all could do. Again, that goes into the whole point of why do we only use 10% of our brains and all that. So we can talk about that some other
Correct.
time. But
Man, there's so many.
yeah, there's
so many verticals.
There's so many. Yeah, there's so many. But when you start think about it, Jesus.
No, I find
was
it interesting,
doing-
man. I
was
don't know a lot of
doing
stuff that y'all
a,
talk
bu-
about,
a
so.
lot of stuff that we're doing right now. He was fighting the power that was taking them down. The church was telling him, you need to be in the synagogue, you need to do this, you need to pay your taxes, and that's why he was flipping over the tables outside the synagogues. That's why he was telling people when he said he was going to preach, it wasn't in a synagogue or in a church. It was on the mountain. It was out in the forest. It was out in the desert. It was out in
preached for everyone
community.
to see where it felt.
He
The-
was
the
telling
priest
you
of
to
that
get
time-
away from religion.
Right. They were into the letter of the law.
The religion is not what you should be spiritually. You're not.
Right.
That wasn't
They're
his message
distracting
either.
you.
They were all about the letter of the law,
They were
right?
about the
Following this
message.
rule.
Well, it's
And
all
then-
about God.
Now, hang on. I'm giving you my personal opinion of what I think. Okay. So Jesus,
okay. Go.
Jesus is there telling people they are corrupting you. The church is corrupt. You need to get away from the church. It's all about a spiritual aspect. You're going to learn. You need to come together as individuals and
So,
learn that.
I'm going to come where you are, right? So if you're only going by the Bible, Jesus came to set up a new covenant with his followers, okay? It was bringing them out of that old law, okay? The old law was just to remind them of how imperfect they were. They could never reach these standards. But that new covenant that he initiated the night of his death with his apostles was bringing in that love element. It's about love and your fellow man and
Sacrifice.
Take care of people.
right.
All
It's like
it's
this is
spiritual.
more important.
This is
Yes. Yeah,
That's
I
who
mean,
the spiritual man is.
When, yeah,
That's
when
who-
I talk
that's
to
what's
him
good.
about it, it's like I tell him every time. I said, to me, I learn a lot from you two especially, and from a lot of different people. And the reason why I do, and I listen to people, is because there's a lot of things we've discovered over the last, or at least I've discovered over the last 10 years, that kind of changed my outlook on certain things.
You know, what did I say about
how
that?
long we've
If you're-
been here,
if you're
things like
able to
that.
change,
Other
you're
ancient
a smart person.
civilizations.
You're not indoctrinated if you can change.
Yeah, I mean, other civilizations. I mean, I'm really starting to believe that that there was a lot of
Yeah,
lot
we
more
haven't even
stuff
got
that we
into
don't
like
know about our
Antarctica. We
history.
got a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
This show
I
is
can sit
gonna
here and talk for
cover
an
a
hour.
lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's all right. That's all right.
But that's why we had you back. That's
wish
why
I
you're
could-
going to be back.
Yeah, I wish I could have come on sooner, but
No,
the
that's
schedule is just wouldn't allow it.
That's all right. We're gonna hit it again in two more.
We're
two more
gonna.
weeks.
Yeah, I
I mean,
appreciate
the
that.
only way for people to understand, and we're not even saying we're correct. We're just saying to look into things.
Yeah.
Right.
Read about
Yeah,
it. It doesn't have to change your mind, but your mind will be so much.
You may grow from it.
So much growth when you just read about some stuff that's what's happened or what other people are saying. You don't have to take anybody's opinion for fact, but go look at the information, then make a moral judgment after you've looked at both sides of the
And
story.
what we're doing is
Well,
what
you're
hasn't
making
hasn't been
informed judgment.
and it hasn't been in the public. There hasn't been discourse. There hasn't been discussion. You know, everybody is just entrenched in what they want, what they believe. There's no back and forth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's all we're doing is presenting
Yeah.
you with another way of looking at it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And
We're just saying what
I would
if-
never get in the way of another man's spirituality.
yeah. And I mean, and a lot of my basis is I've told him several times is my faith is in Christ because I believe in Him. It's not it's
you
not
should.
it's not all the the books of the Bible are good. The message is good, but the whole sum of the message is we get to our Lord through our Lord Jesus Christ. To me. And what he stands for, faith, being good, loving others.
It's very simple.
And yeah, it's very simple.
Very
and
simple.
And that's how I believe it. All the other details and how we get there, that's for each person to discover and figure out.
That's your
So-
spiritual journey.
Yes,
That's
Exactly.
the whole part of the
Exactly.
journey.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
everybody
So-
at this table. He's made a choice at some point in time to take the right or the left fork in the road. So did I.
Right.
You're the thing is you're still traveling up that path, but you're about a half mile away from where it's about to
fork.
split. Yeah,
Halfway from the fork.
and you're going to get to that point where at some point in time you will get to that point and say, no, I either believe in Jesus Christ and I'm never going to let that go, or there's got to be more to this.
I'll always believe there's
Wait,
more
no,
to
and
it.
I'm always saying
So,
that, and I'm not
absolutely.
saying Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was here for a reason.
Yeah.
He was here to teach people to do something. He was teaching us how to treat other people, how to live our lives, but he was trying to tell us there was more to this.
Can I relate something? And people may think this is just crazy, but I have a healer and I have an astrologer, and these two people are very important to me. They've been very accurate and very. They have brought whole nother element to my life, and I'm grateful for it. Filled in a lot of holes, but independently, they told me that, and if you believe in past lives, that I was in the presence of Jesus at a time. And he said, get over yourself, because everybody
Has been there.
been and had they're here for a reason, right? They said that my being here is to help people transition into what's coming. They both told me that a long time ago, and I'm starting to see that more fully. Especially the people that have come to me, continue to get people to come to me to ask questions, or I'll get hit up on social media. Hey man, you told me about this like 10 years ago. Now look, it's happening. The other thing they said is that because I was in his presence in a very close manner, is that I recognize what is being taught now is not the truth. And it because I asked them, why do I have this disdain for organized religion? And I'm sorry, I do, because of all the things I've seen and experienced. And they said, because you were there and you know what the truth is, and that's not what's being taught now.
Okay.
So I'll leave you with that.
Well, we'll leave all y'all with it too, man. Until
mean-
we'll see y'all again live in 2 weeks. It's been a blast again, Angela. We appreciate it.
Always
man.
love it.
Always.
Definitely.
Always.
Always my friend.
Anytime
Appreciate you
Angelo's
guys.
in the building, him and I, it's been funny because this is only the second time or third time we've got to really sit down and talk about that. We really haven't had to we need to go to dinner one night where we can just sit down and have dinner and
That'd
a
be
couple
great.
drinks and just talk for hours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
I had to stop y'all for the show just to keep y'all the material, man.
I was starting to think there in a while. I'm gonna say, you know what? We might have to change this to the Marty and Angelo show and just move Rich to the side or something here. I'm just kidding. No, but it's
I knew I'd get fired sometime.
I always love it when somebody makes me think. And again,
Yeah.
that's why you're always around, because you're always making me think about something.
And
And
it keeps you sharp because
Yeah.
but what's funny about it is you telling him stuff, and then you notice me smirking or smiling, or I'm telling him something, and then you're saying, it's like we're both doing. Wow, we haven't talked about that, but we're already on the same page on that one. So we'll come back to that later. So
Right.
there.
he told me that before I ever met you.
Yeah, there's
that we
I
would have a
knew
lot of
you
synergy.
guys would hit it
and
off.
there's parts of the puzzle you're clicking for me, and when I tell you some more about the system we were talking about earlier,
Right.
it's going to click a couple of more.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a couple more things that are going to click in to get that. But Yeah, we're gonna be live. Have we decided what night we're gonna be live?
We're gonna keep doing it on Thursdays, just like tonight. We'll just keep it on Thursdays.
No, on the podcast. I mean, are we going live?
Yeah, we're live tonight.
We're live right now.
Oh, we're not.
No, this is the podcast taping. You been drinking? So I mean,
No.
you had said
What's
something
in
on
that
the
coffee?
last one about we were going live. We were scheduling a live. Did we have a date for that?
I was planning on doing it every Thursdays with Mr. Angelo here, man, and then every other week we'll just record.
All right.
So
we're
some
gonna
guests,
try
and
to-
then we'll probably bring in a guest or
Well,
something. If we're gonna do some people to
if
bring
we're gonna
in,
do
too.
live, it's got to be, I mean, Friday or Saturday, because if we're gonna stay on for a couple hours, Thursday nights you're gonna get most people not gonna be home and wanting to watch the live. I mean, Friday
Yeah,
and
if you do
Saturday
it
nights
live.
is when we can,
I mean,
everybody's.
it's up to you guys. Let me know.
We just need to pick a night we
I'm
can.
flexible on Friday or Saturdays right now, so
Those are tough for me because I always have something going on, events or something like that.
Or Sunday. I mean, we have to do it sometime where, that if we're going to get any live people to get in the chat and talk to us, we got, Thursday night, unless we put it out there for a couple
Thursday night
weeks and
aren't
say
bad.
we're going to do it. No, we'll get some people on. I just want to make sure we get, some of the people that want to be there.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people that when they hear this one, they're going to want more.
It's not going to
information.
be the same like for me every time. So
Right.
just give me a heads up, and then I'll say, hey, yay or nay, I can be there.
okay.
All right.
Well, I mean, with the tapings, we can do the tapings on Thursday night. I'm talking about on the live, like we did on election night. We were here 5 hours on election night. You should have been here for that. We had people coming in and out. We had people zooming in. And we can always zoom you in, too, when we want to talk about something. You want to talk
okay.
about something.
Yeah,
Because we
yeah,
zoomed in my
absolutely.
sister
Yeah.
and his friend.
Yeah,
from,
she lives in New York.
in
That'll
New
be
York.
cool.
My little liberal.
That'll
So
be cool.
They were both on for like 4 hours with us on the live on the election night.
Yeah, it was
All
great,
right.
man. It was actually fun. It was really cool.
Sounds
Yeah, we'll
good.
let you
So-
know what's going on, and we'll see y'all soon. Peace.
Until then.
Peace.
Well, we're going to bring a lot to you, man. So y'all just stay tuned and be prepared.